Kia ora. Aere mai. Everything is kapai. We are here with the Niche Cast, and we will be setting the table today on the Niche Cast. Interesting Kiwi sporting times, lots of cricket, lots of football, and I'd go as far as saying lots of basketball as well. Wildcards. We're just going to more skim the surface, but we're setting the table. So we're not digesting the full meal just yet. We're setting the table on really interesting Kiwi sporting times. What are we? Late November, heading into December. It's a weird old time of year. And we do the Patreon podcast as well. That's where I was heading. Patreon.com/our niche cache. So early in the week, we do the Patreon podcast. And that's a great way to support the niche cache and the niche cast. So if you love what we're doing, get some good karma points, get some XP, HP, KP for karma points as well. Sign up to the Patreon. What is it? It's just $1 a month, $1.50, $10, whatever you decide. That's where you pay a month. You get extra podcasts and the karma points, the good vibes flowing between us and just for yourself as well. Multi order, raise your vibration, raise your mana. Friday tomorrow, that means email banger coming to you Friday afternoon. Lots of really interesting yarns always to be had in the email. Monday and Friday evening, the nichecase.substack.com. Whack in your email address, and you basically just get the niche case straight into your inbox. How easy. We're always writing about Aotearoa sport as well, the niche-case.com. Frequent yarns, regular yarns, deep dives, informative, insightful, and just generally glorious wildcard. Can you please start us off with a dose of mindfulness?
That I can, and we're going to the Marcus Aurelius well here, Meditations. Marcus Aurelius' Meditations, number 54 in book 7. Everywhere, at each moment, you have the option to accept this event with humility, to treat this person as they should be treated, to approach this thought with care so that nothing irrational creeps in. Triple banger there. It's a 3-parter.
Which, to summarize, is just the power of your choice in each moment.
Yeah, so, basically.
And that's your own personal power. And I think if you focus on that kind of power instead of other kind of powers, you might be more powerful. Because then you're realizing in every moment you've got the power to make a different choice, or whatever choice just feels best for you.
And to make the mindful choice each time, right? Like the 3 things he says: accept the event with humility, whether that's something good happening and just staying humble, or something terrible happening and just not overreacting and just accepting that these things happen from time to time and they happen to everyone. Treating the other person as they should be treated. That's generic, the golden rule, isn't it? And then approaching this thought with care so that nothing irrational creeps in is just being the master of your own mind, isn't it? And tying into what those first 2 options also said, it's in a way, it's a variation on the theme of staying present in the moment, isn't it? But it's more like a toolkit on how to stay present in the moment, by effectively just saying, don't overreact. stay steady. Marcus Aurelius, the original Stoic, isn't he? So just keep it tidy, keep it even.
Yeah. Keep it tidy, stay steady is because the words that stuck to mind when I was thinking about, podcast today was most pertinent, and that will come up in a jiffy. But I think the most pertinent thing right now in our existence on Earth is to stay steady. Keep it tidy, stay steady. Because if you look around the world, every little aspect of the world shit's hitting the fan in some way or another. Like, you don't have to get into political stuff. We can just look at the Ashes, where both teams have a massive drama around their team. Like, you don't have to feel any type of way about obviously these themes are, there is a correct way to feel. We don't want racism, we don't want the sexual stuff. However, you just need to observe, and that helps you be steady, because you're like, whoa, am I staying steady when like someone cuts me off on the road, or when someone like does something at the supermarket. You get attitude, you get lip, whatever it is. I think these are the most pertinent thing in these times, as you can observe around the world. Like LeBron James just like punched this Isaiah Stewart. Like everything is going crazy. I swear to God, you can look through every sport, let alone politics, whatever else. Everything's going crazy. So keep it tidy and stay steady. Like just stay in your little pocket. You don't have to overreact, as you said.
Yeah, take it easy. Like it's the thing. The dumb things, the crazy things are going to happen, and it's not even really about those people. Like whoever I don't know. Tim Payne seems like the most easy individual to pick out from those examples. Whatever Tim Payne did, okay, that's done. The reaction to that is where the craziness starts to snowball, isn't it? When everyone out, like, was it Tasmania Cricket came out with like a nuclear response against Cricket Australia, and there's everyone arguing back and forth, and the take merchants and everything. Like that's where things get peak crazy. Like the original madnesses are still gonna happen one way or another. It's how you react to those things, and it's when everyone overreacts that everything becomes so overwhelming. And yeah, that's the keep it steady, take it easy approach. That's where that comes in nice and handy, is just being able to step back from the madness.
So you came with the ancient philosophy of Marcus Aurelius. You came with the meditations quote, the meditations stanza. Stay steady, keep it tidy. That's the modern day Kiwi philosophy.
Yeah,
that's we're dealing in equivalent.
It just shows how wisdom gets passed down through the ages, and how it sort of pops up in different cultures all the way through. And there's these. I'll save that tangent for another time. But yeah, we should probably get into the actual podcast.
Theme of the podcast is most pertinent, so we'll keep it on the most pertinent track. And the niche cast, so early in the week, Tuesday variety show, we're just trying to update you on what we find fun around Kiwi sports, mainly from the weekend, generally what's happening. Niche cast, we try and pick out what is most pertinent and dive a bit deeper into that topic, that sport, that team, that player. This week, though, in this current period, I think the most pertinent thing in Kiwi sport is that these are crazy times, just like the world. Crazy in a glorious way about Kiwi sports. We got so much happening. Like Blackcaps starts this afternoon, 5 p.m. Day play starts, I think.
Ain't that just a beautiful time to watch Test cricket? Like, that actually got me thinking, because I was thinking about how like good that is, like a 5 p.m. start. And what is a day of Test cricket? It's what, 7 hours, 3 2-hour sessions, 40 minutes lunch, 20 minutes for tea, adds up. Probably cater for at least an extra half hour for the slow over rates, although it might not be such a problem in India, where there likely to be a fair bit of spin being bowled. But what does that mean? Day should be finished by 1 a.m, 2 a.m. at the latest. Like it's easily watchable. You can get the whole day in. Over dinner, nice summer evenings as well, so long as the weather holds out, which a little overcast today, but otherwise it's been lovely for a couple of weeks. That's fantastic. And it reminded me of what you wrote in the email on Monday about how the Blackcaps just played a T20 series in India with a bunch of Indian local sponsors on their jerseys. And it also reminds me of times when, like, can't remember if it was day or day nighter games, but like India have toured here in the past where we've catered to their time zone. And then we just played a T20 series in India where all 3 games started at 3 o'clock in the morning or whatever it was. Effectively zero consideration for the away teams fans on the other side of the world hoping to watch it. And I understand why that is. Like, even when India come here, there's obviously a whole lot more Indian fans watching on TV than New Zealand fans, even in even every single person in the country watched the Blackcaps when they were on 100% audience share. it would still be a drop in the water compared to the Indian audience watching back home. So I understand how those things happen, but it is a bit of one of those things where like the Blackcaps are just constantly reminded that we're one of the smallest test, probably the smallest test playing nation, assuming you count all the West Indian nations as the West Indies and not, Jamaica, Barbados, etc. I assume that's true. I can't think of a country that'd be smaller. Yeah, like that's the things that we have to deal with. But then this one, Test cricket, India have been a little bit resistant to things such as DRS back in the day. Sachin got out early on for DRS, and India as a country didn't use it again basically for about 6 or 7 years after that. I'd imagine that day-night cricket is in a similar boat in India. So Test matches, no choice but to play them at a beautiful time for Kiwi viewers back home. Didn't get that luxury during the T20 series though.
Not sure we're going to get the Royal Green, Great White, and Kent Minerals, I think, on the Test jersey. I don't think that's going to happen, but we definitely got on the T20 jersey. And like, do you remember when they started putting AIG on the front of the All Blacks jersey?
Yeah, and everyone kerfuffle about that.
Massive kerfuffle, like, how dare you? This is the heritage. You can't put a sponsor on the All Blacks jersey. That's blasphemy, whatever, type of thing you want to say there.
The earliest All Blacks jersey I can remember, though, I'm sure I had a big ass Steinlager across the belly.
Yeah, who knows? But that's happening, and then you've got a Blackcaps team that is literally playing a game of cricket with 3 Indian brands on the jersey, and no one gives a shit. So obviously no one gives a shit about the heritage or the traditions of the Blackcaps T20 jersey, but then we'll get the Test jersey that will probably be nice and clean. But let's we're setting the table here. There is time for Blackcaps. We'll get there. 5 p.m. kickoff, beautiful. We have Plunket Shield is happening right now. Then we start, I think, Northern Districts versus Otago Volts. I was about to say shout out to Brett Randell. He is on fire. Northern Districts seamer, now an all-rounder, scoring runs, taking wickets. We'll get into that. Super Smash starts this weekend, and then they're playing Ford Trophy games during the week. So as soon as this Super Smash cycle starts, we get Ford Trophy midweek, which I kind of like. I think that's nice. It's just a frequent flow of cricket instead of, I think last summer you had a bit of Super Smash on weekends and not much in between. So I like what's happening there. Kiwi cricket, lots happening. Sophie Devine plays in the Big Bash final on Sunday, I think, as well. Footy Ferns play 2 games versus Korea this weekend as well. We have the Wellington Phoenix, second game in the A-League, Central Coast Mariners. That's a Saturday evening. So wildcard, you will have, depending on the, what time are we dealing here with the Korea game? 6 p.m. So Saturday evening, you got Wellington Phoenix 7 p.m. You've got Football Ferns 6 p.m. apparently, and you'll have
that's no good.
Blackcaps
scheduling
in the afternoon. Mate, that's a beautiful Saturday evening. That's a
double screeners.
That's tremendous. You can't see anything.
Triple
negative.
Screeners with the cricket, eh?
Mate, for all your mindfulness, you've come out with that was a very negative response to a beautiful Saturday evening. Can't shout out.
I got to say, I've lost my page, but I can't remember what he said.
Shout out to the.
I got to take it with humility. Yeah,
we have Flying Kiwis happening. You've got Chris Wood behind you there, like Flying Kiwis footballers around the world doing their thing. It's all happening, and at the same time as that, you've got domestic cricket as well. So we've got this tension between the Blackcaps are playing in India, and we've got domestic cricket in New Zealand. Football Ferns are playing. And we've got domestic cricket, football in New Zealand. Flying Kiwis are getting busy all around the world. Domestic football's happening. We've got a bunch of Kiwis about to start playing in the NBL, the Australian NBL. You would have heard about the Breakers, got some COVID, whatever the fuck. Who cares? Most NBL teams have a Kiwi as well. And they have really good, we've talked a lot about the wave of basketball coming through. NBL is a little pocket you need to dive into, where you've got a lot of Kiwis getting regular minutes and development roles. And the Australian clubs are doing a nice job of recruiting the young wave of Kiwi basketballers that are not really getting the opportunity with the Breakers. Stephen Adams, regular old NBA business. And we've got Charlie Sledger-Walker leading the crew of Kiwi men and women, boys and girls in the NCAA. So, like, I don't know, if you're not, again, we mentioned this on the Friday show, if you're not too stressed about, rugby or netball or something like that, there are other major sports are very busy at the moment. And it's happy. I mean, it's summertime in Aotearoa, coming into summer. We're coming into like less COVID stuff. We've got sports happening around the world involving Kiwis. Full circle, come back to the present moment, Thursday morning, coming into a Blackcaps Test World Cup. Just what's your feeling? What's your vibe?
My vibe is, I'm skeptical about how well they can do against India, coming off a bunch of T20 stuff as well. Maybe the most adaptable cricketing nation on the planet, but still it is a big swing to come out like at the end of a long tour for a lot of these guys, play a couple test matches in India, the hardest place in the world to go. That's a place where we notoriously struggle as well for obvious reasons. That's not something that fills you with optimism. However, like it's the start of the World Test Championship. We had a write-off series last time and made the final and won the thing. So you can get away with a bad result. New Zealand aren't expected to get a lot away in India if they can, luck into a nice and flat deck and bat out a long innings and earn a draw or something like that. One draw out of 2 games, 2-game series. That's higher percentage of points for each game. Obviously, the way the Test Championship works, that's like 30 odd points or something like that for a draw, something like that. And like that's good business. A draw and a loss would give them more points from this series than they would expect to. So, like, if you look at it from that sort of blank slate perspective, start of a Test Championship cycle, little bit of a free hit because of the circumstances and the difficulty of touring India. That does make it pretty interesting when you start to think about, like, okay, well, nothing to lose here. How might the Blackcaps be successful? Like, what could they do to upset India and take some? I think this first test is quite important too. Like, that's the crucial one, because India have, Virat Kohli's not playing the first test. I think there's 1 or 2 other guys who aren't in the squad, who might otherwise have been. Like, a little bit of an opportunity, like, and as much of an opportunity as they're ever going to get in India. It's there's, thinking of it from that clean slate, nothing to lose perspective. It's pretty exciting from that angle. It's addressing the start of a new series with humility and et cetera, as Marcus Aurelius would say.
And again, glorious Kiwi humility, humble fashion. A drawn series is okay.
Drawn series would be amazing. I'm talking about like one drawn test would be good.
Because it's like what the last World Test Championship cycle. So they had I think they had a series win against Pakistan in the UAE, and then they drew the series in Sri Lanka. They split the test. Sri Lanka won the first. I think
the UAE was second. Before the Test Championship, but that was leading into it.
Yep. And you're starting your World Test Championship cycle with a drawn series overseas. That's okay. Because we're thinking about accumulating points and how other teams are going to travel to India and what India are going to do overseas, and just how the World Test Championship ladder and fixture list, and it all intermingles, and you get points, you give up points, you salvage points. It's the context we've wanted around Test cricket for a long time. And if you go to a tough place and you can turn a perilous 4th day or 5th day into a draw, that's a good result. And if that's kind of just like a drawn series would be nice, I think there is room to breathe where whether it's a crazy individual performance from Ajaz Patel or someone else like Kane Williamson is just like, he can't be dismissed, something like that, or the Blackcaps, their nous, their craft, the things we always talk about, if that can fill the space to grab a win, I think it's possible. Definitely wasn't all clued up on what India were doing and how many players weren't playing for India either. And there was something on Cricket Info where they're talking about Ross Taylor interview where he was saying, we won the last World Test Championship final. It's hard to be the underdog, and when you're the big dog, like the Blackcaps are the big dog in Test cricket, you can't be the underdog anymore. And they're still the underdog for this Test, but they're the underdog, which is a good thing. So shout out to that. They're the underdog, even though they're the big dog, and they're against the weaker Indian team. So it does seem like there's like somehow the big dog status has been flipped into underdog status, which is a gift from the universe. And at the same time, we've got an Indian Test team slightly weakened. Of course, they can bring in all these other Jerrys who are like ready to go.
Emphasis on slightly, but yeah.
But you're not dealing with a Virat Kohli. You're not dealing with I think KL Rahul, and like you look at what their probable team is. They got Saha as the wicketkeeper. Well, fuck, I'm way more scared of that Pant fella who smacks it to all parts. Like he just feels way more scary in India because he's going to smash Ajaz Patel around. He's going to smash Will Somerville around. Like he doesn't give a shit. Like he's a gymnast. He just whacks sixes. So I feel, in my summary, that the stars have aligned for
in
a
as
series
much as
win.
they can.
Well, for me, it's all in. It's all in on a series win. But I'm definitely of the belief that a drawn series is okay. But I'm putting the pieces together. Stars aligned. I think they can win the series.
Yeah, I'm of the belief that a drawn series would be absolutely fantastic. Like that's unbelievable if they can do that. I think it has happened before. Didn't they draw that series when McCullum got a double hundred over there? Wasn't there a series like sort of 2012, 13 range? I think they went over there and didn't threaten to win games, but held off for a draw or two. I think pretty sure that was the case. I'm sure they drew at least one of those test matches. The most recent time I think that we went to India was 2016, and it was bad. There was a little bit of a makeshift team at that point. I don't know. I think they're better placed now by miles in order to go to a place like India and actually like still play some Blackcaps cricket, not just feel like, well, we're in India, we have to pick all the spinners and we have to completely rearrange our batting lineup and do funky things like that. I think they're in a place where they can adapt and increase the balance more towards that kind of thing. I mean, you're going to see at least two spinners in the starting lineup, but they also don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater, as the saying goes. The more I think about it, the more I want to see Daryl Mitchell bat at 6. Like we talked about this quite a bit on the Patreon podcast. If people listening are also patrons, they will have had access to that one. If not, then sign up. But the more I think about it, the more I want that additional seam bowling option. I think you can get big overs out of Somerville and Patel, and as much as Santner would certainly have a lot to offer in these conditions. I just sort of like the balance of the team better with Mitchell at 6, who can also bowl some tidy, hopefully Colin de Gronholm-esque like restrictive overs. Just keep them to less than 2 and over. Don't even worry about taking wickets, but get through some of the hard yards, and then you've got Blundell at 7 and probably Jamison at 8, depending on what arrangement of frontline seamers they go with. I would really love. I think that team would be fantastic from a batting perspective. It does put pressure on Patel and Santner, not just to get through overs, but to also take wickets and be quite successful. But I mean, I don't think they're going to win a series in India, or even a test in India without that happening in the first place. So, one of the things I said on the Variety Show is that I think Ajaz Patel's in a pretty tidy area coming into this test match, because I don't know how much he would have played. I mean, he was quite good in the UAE that series. He was very good in the UAE that series you mentioned before when they beat Pakistan. Wouldn't have toured India before. Don't really know how good the Indian scouting would be of Plunkett Shield stuff. I'm sure they've done enough to know what he has to offer, but this is a little bit of a rare opportunity where he could certainly be a guy who comes in underrated by what he's facing. And the Indian batting lineup, as always, is stacked with right-handers who he can turn the ball away from, and that puts him in a nice position to do some funky things. I think you can get away, not only get away with having just two spinners, but I think maybe that's the way to go, because if two spinners aren't going to do the trick, then I don't think a third is going to make a difference. In light of all those right-handers, there is maybe an argument that Santner plays ahead of Somerville, but I don't know. There's a couple of funky things, isn't there, with selection for this Test match that we'd have to think about. One of them that's not funky is I'm pretty sure Will Young will be the opener in place of Conway. I don't think Ravindra or anyone else is challenging him for that task, but we'll see how it goes with everything else.
I imagine Indians will be very well aware of Ajaz Patel because they know a lot about the Indians who play for other countries.
True. If you're writing about Sarpreet Singh, there's a lot of replies to tweets about Sarpreet Singh from if he pops up in a tweet from Regensburg or something, a lot of Sarpreet, come play for India type of things. It's not how it
Patel
works,
was instrumental in the Sri Lankan series as well. So both of the Blackcaps series that they have salvaged results on in foreign conditions, which never really used to happen for the Blackcaps, has been the spinners have been pretty damn impressive in those series, and that's why they'll play in this test. That's why they're in the squad, even though both of them have had one kind of crappy summer and a solid okay summer in the last two summers. They've alternated.
And nothing recently.
So it's that's why they're in the squad now, but that test will be starting by the time you're listening to it. So I hope you're enjoying. But let's get into some other Kiwi cricket here, Wildcard. What are you thinking about? What are you intrigued by? Because maybe you're just so deep into the football and other stuff that you're not too thinking about the domestic cricket too much. So what are you curious about my thoughts on the Super Smash or Ford Trophy or Plunkett Shield? What's top of mind in the Kiwi cricket landscape? Shout out to the women's cricket as well, because that stuff is all important. World Cup coming up and all that stuff. So anything, you can maybe just ask me anything. Maybe if you've got something better to say yourself, hit us up with it.
I don't think I've got anything better to say than what you could say. So I'm just going to throw it back to you with two names, Henry Cooper and Brett Randell.
Slow start to the season for Henry Cooper. Oh, but they've only played one game.
It's only the second game, yeah.
Second game. But he wasn't so good last season, I think, is what I was meant to say.
Yeah.
So it's weird because we've talked about Joe Carter previously from ND. Joe Carter and Henry Cooper were kind of together at the top of the run scoring charts in the Plunkett Shield for the first two seasons out of the last 4. And then Henry Cooper fell off and Joe Carter stayed top 5 or leading run scorer in the Plunkett Shield. We've talked about Henry Cooper before in that window where he was putting up massive Plunkett Shield numbers. We talked about him then, and then he fell off a bit. So he's got the history and he's found some form, although I will say it feels like a lot of teams are scoring runs against Otago. So the thing you'd count just an asterisk not against Henry Cooper, but we do have to be aware that Otago Volts don't have the most threatening Plunkett Shield attack. And this was evident in the stat about Michael Rippon being the leading spinner in the Plunkett Shield, and he's averaging 40 something. But it's also evident, I think, in a bit of Jacob Duffy. Jacob Duffy he's averaging over 40 as well. I think Otago in the Plunkett Shield this season, they don't have a bowler averaging below 30. So that tells you about the Otago bowling attack. And I think just to one thing there is Jacob Duffy hasn't quite like kicked on since getting some Blackcaps opportunities. I think he toured to England over the winter, played some T20s for the Blackcaps last summer. Hasn't been a notable factor for Otago this summer, which is also kind of interesting. But Henry Cooper, we know he can score runs. He's probably ND's second best batsman, up and coming batsman behind Joe Carter. Like G. Raval scored runs as well. He's a toiler. He's a grafter. Just a true champion. Brett Randell, Henry Cooper from Northland as well. For those who are wondering, Brett Randell, mentioned him in the last podcast, and he's come out again with that wrist action. It's all the wrist action, because some of those deliveries, he is nipping them back into right-handers through the gate, and it was kind of beautiful to watch. What did he score? He scored some runs as well. 50. Batting number 3, Night Watchman. Shout out to Brett Randell, all-round talent, supreme. Seems to be bowling effortlessly smooth, and I don't know what that would translate to an actual speed, but he doesn't look slow, and I'm reminded of the like everything just looks easy with Brett Randell. So he's got some good skills, and he's had a fantastic 2-game stretch. Henry Cooper's scored big runs, but again, maybe the key nugget here, wildcard, is to, I think just the stats tell us. I need to get these pure stats out, because I think these stats just tell us the story about Otago's seam attack to start the summer, which hasn't been overly threatening. One jiffy. Best bowler is Matt Bacon. He took 3 wickets. So the best average is 31.33. Jacob Duffy is averaging 49 with the ball. Their leading wicket takers, Muller's been all right. He's got 13 wickets at 32. Rippon is next for wickets. He's got 12 wickets at 42. So once again, they have no bowler averaging below 30, and they've got a pretty decent sample size. Like most of them have played 3 games or 4 games. So shout out to Henry Cooper, but a lot of other players have been scoring runs against Otago as well.
Double 100 though. Double 100 is more than a decent start. Do you see some of, like, have you checked his highlights as well? He's
stand and bang. Like that's the thing, is they're bowling, like every boundary is just short, and he's just standing there and just whacking it. So like, yeah, he's scoring a double 100, but like, I think there's other openers around Aotearoa who would also be like okay with scoring runs against Otago, because like you look at his boundaries and it looks good. It fucking looked amazing. He's standing there and just like fucking swatting deliveries through the offside, but they're short and wide. And if they're like a little bit, the line is a little bit better, they're short, and he's just throwing his hands through it or he's hooking it. So yeah, but shout out to everyone. Or
he's switch hitting the spinners for 6. It's actually how he got out as well. I think he was just getting carried away at one point. He switch hit under a kitchen for 6, and he switch hit like a rip-on for 6, and then he got out LBW trying to switch hit rip-on again for 6, which, as it goes, the LBW off the switch hit is a bit of a weird one. It's like when I slowed it down, you could see it was kind of, fairly full, hit him like just above the ankle in front of middle stump. So you probably take that, but you never quite know where the ball's pitching with those, where the batsman's swapping their stance and everything.
Guess what's just happened in the Northern District's Otago game?
What were they up to?
Otago just batting
declaration.
They are 4 for 1, wicket to Brett Randell, nipped it into Hamish Rutherford. So as per, that's just regular Brett Randell stuff for this 2-game stretch. What else? So we're moving Super Smash. Anything excite you in the Super Smash there, wildcard? It does have interesting context. Like, we are dealing in a double T20 World Cup window. But it's hard to focus just on Super Smash when we've also got Ford Trophy. And I think for the women, it's going to be the same. You'll have Super Smash and you'll have Halliburton Johnston Shield mixed in, or you might just have, because they're only playing weekends at the moment, so they only play HBJ Shield on the weekends, so they might just replace that with Super Smash. I'm not sure exactly, but yeah, any other follow-up thoughts with the domestic cricket?
Well, the only one I'd have there is short of seeing actual games before the stuff starts, and short of like seeing teams named 11s out there to see what who's available and all these things. I think as you say, in between two 2020 World Cups, we had like a lot of the top dudes, because there is a lot of crossover between the three formats for the Blackcaps. A lot of the top dudes currently over in India, or have just come back from India, or just coming back, and probably in MIQ or whatever. That takes out a lot of your prime top choice Blackcaps 2020 guys. However, not that long ago, there was a tour to Bangladesh in which none of those guys from the World Cup squad were there either. And so we saw like a lot of basically a second 11 Blackcaps team who were pretty good. Like, all things considered, they got better as it went along. The injection of Finn Allen to get a bit of a kickstart earlier on in the batting innings certainly helped change the momentum of that series. But, there were guys that bowled fairly well throughout, guys who chipped in with some nice runs. A couple of those are actually in the test team. So, Henry Nicholls, Tom Latham, obviously not going to be there. But there are a bunch of guys. You just mentioned Jacob Duffy maybe hasn't kicked on yet, at least. Like, has had a little bit of a down spell in the wake of some nice Blackcaps opportunities. Quite a few other guys from that Bangladesh tour, and guys who would have been close to selection for that Bangladesh tour, will be playing in these Super Smash games, won't they? So there is an opportunity to see like who will kick on, like who is going to get that little bit of a taster of international cricket, and then be like, well, I don't know how much the Blackcaps 2020 World Cup squad is actually going to change between the one last month or start of this month and the one in 12 months or whenever it is, the next one. I don't know how much change there would be, but someone like Finn Allen certainly is the obvious example, but the obvious is a bit boring to chuck out. But he's someone who might put his hand up with just further like indomitable efforts. But there are other guys who are in the similar thing where they're close enough to selection that a huge summer changes things for them. That's cool to see. Like, and there's a good amount as well that we don't need to start like naming a couple individuals and the chance that maybe they'll like burst off. Because you never like sometimes you're in great form, you just don't score the runs. How cricket goes. It's a bit of chance involved as well. But enough available guys who fit into that category. A couple of them are certainly going to have big summers. And there are quite a few in that range. The depth is pretty decent right now. So that's probably the thing to watch. Is I will keep an open mind about who it will be, but definitely keeping an eye on like who from that sort of next tier, that fringe is putting their hands up.
And if we're the most pertinent thing here, I believe, is how domestic cricket filters into World Cups, because the women's cricket in New Zealand this summer is so much more important because you've got a home World Cup right there at the end of the summer, and you've got a White Ferns team who, if they roll out the same team they have in the last few series, they're not going to make the semi-finals of the fucking home World Cup, regardless of how many lovely the marketing and the advertising and all that stuff around the World Cup is in New Zealand. Straight up and down, full steak and cheese pie. If the White Ferns are the same team that they have been over the last 12 months in ODI cricket for an ODI World Cup, they're not going to be in the semi-finals, and that's going to be really disappointing. And that goes back to what happens in domestic cricket for women's cricket in New Zealand this summer, setting up that World Cup. Same thing goes for the Blackcaps also, because you've got there's always competition for places. Like, the Blackcaps always playing cricket at the same time as domestic cricket, so there's always competition for places. But we're pigeon between two. Is that even a thing? Like pigeonholed maybe? Yeah, we're in a pigeonhole.
Yeah, pigeonhole.
Yeah,
or just like two pigeons.
We're between two T20 World Cups, and we've got the World Test Championship also happening. But the two T20 World Cups is the rare thing. That is the different thing, as you've said. So most pertinent thing for me is that there are World Cups for both men's and women's cricket on our doorstep right here. And it puts a different twist on domestic cricket, because it's more cricket. So like the Blackcaps are playing a lot of different formats. There's going to be there has to be injuries, there has to be opportunities presented, and that's how you start to see the younger players integrated. Women's cricket, you might have a refreshing of the squad depending on what happens in domestic cricket. Like there's a lot of unknown players doing pretty well in women's cricket in New Zealand at the moment, and there are white ferns who have gone back to domestic cricket who are not doing so well, which is really interesting because there's like these white ferns camps and there's white ferns promotion around the World Cup with players who haven't performed so well for the white ferns and have not returned to domestic cricket in great form either. So like the case wasn't very strong for their selection before the summer, and they've kind of got worse in domestic cricket. That's what I'm interested in. I'm kind of holding fire on a few things just to see how that plays out over a greater period of time, because like some players haven't even played. I don't think Rosemary Mayor's played. I don't think Jess Kerr's played too much. I don't think like all the Auckland players haven't played too much, but there are players who have returned to domestic cricket after basically being smoked by England in England, and they haven't really done too much. So that's all interesting setting up the World Cup. And you mentioned about the T20 World Cup for the men. Like I think you won't see Todd Astle again. So there's spots that will open up. There will be like, well, straight up, because you're playing T20 cricket in Australia, so you're not going to carry the same amount of spinners. Like shout out to Todd Astle, Mr. No Wickets for 10 RPO. But you're playing in Australia, so you're going to carry less spinners by nature anyway. So then it's like, which seam are you going to pick? Which all-rounder are you going to pick? Like there is a lot of World Cup context to domestic cricket in New Zealand is probably the best way of saying it, and that is fucking interesting.
Yeah, and I should have, when I was saying what I said just there, I should have also like pointed out that the White Ferns context is much more important because it's not just a World Cup, it's a home World Cup. So yeah, there's an interesting, like, you know, everything that the football Ferns have done since the Olympics, there's always been a little bit of a note about like, we're preparing for the 2023 World Cup, co-hosting with Australia. We're preparing for that. Like we've got that in mind. Like it's a lot of, it's just something that's mentioned all the time. I don't know if there's been a whole lot of that with the White Ferns. I mean, it's a thing that you know about if you're following the cricket, is you know there's, you know, a home World Cup coming up. You know that this is the context, but I just don't know if that's been emphasized to the same degree, which is surprising because, as you're saying, like White Ferns results haven't been fantastic, and some of the selections have not been haven't entirely made sense. There's, I mean, yeah, there's definitely been like a trend towards, well, we want to pick younger players with potential and use these opportunities to develop them to levels that maybe they don't get to develop at domestic level, but also that's not how you prepare for a World Cup that's coming up in, you know, a matter of months' time. It's you pick experienced players who can deliver right now, is generally how that goes. And the other parallel, I think we mentioned briefly on the last the variety show as well, is how the Blackcaps have had a lot of success recently picking experienced players who have had several years of domestic cricket to figure their styles out and everything. Whereas the White Ferns tend to trend younger with new selections and have had results that are also opposite, like opposite selection priorities and then opposite results at the same time. It's just a curious contrast within the New Zealand cricket realm.
And then on top of that, basically since Bob Carter took over as coach for the White Ferns, the stats of the best players has also decreased. So it's like a double-edged sword. But let's transition into some footy Ferns. They play Korea, double header this weekend. They play that Saturday 6 p.m. and Tuesday's 11 p.m. What's different as far as like the squad goes, or just what's happening here from their last fixtures against Canada, the Canada gold medal party that the football Ferns were invited to? What is different for this Korean series? in Goyang.
Yeah, that the pre-match celebrations and stuff for Canada there, it felt like an invitation to a party where it's like a friend of a friend invited you and you don't really know anyone there and you're just sort of standing in the corner having a quiet drink to yourself, wondering like how soon is too soon to leave. That was a bit like what the Ferns were going through, and just watching Canada parade around their gold medals and everything. Korea don't have gold medals, so don't have to worry about that. Little bit, they're still, especially playing in South Korea, it'll be they'll be considerable enough favorites, but it's a closer talent gap to what there was between the Ferns and Canada. And yeah, like the squads have definitely, since the Canadian squad, they've basically figured out like some of the Aussie restrictions have lifted a little bit on travel, so they've been able to pick some, not all, but some of their not W League, A League W players. So like Rebecca Stott's not available. She's still sort of working her way back up after taking basically a year out to treat her cancer diagnosis. She's still on the comeback trail. Hannah Wilkinson's got a little injury niggle, so she hasn't been selected. There's none of the Phoenix players have been selected, which is a little bit more to do with how young that squad is. But you have seen players like Paige Satchel and Malia Steinmetz is back in the mix. It's quite cool. Claudia Bunge will go in as a starting centre back alongside Michaela Moore, which frees up Katie Bowen to play in the midfield. So a lot of the bones of the same team is still there. It's still not full strength for that reason. Like you have, Abby Erceg still unavailable. Rosie White isn't there this time. Couple players, in that kind of boat. Emma Ralston started the first game as centre forward last tour. She's just come back to New Zealand from the end of her season in Norway, so she was still in MIQ. And scrap to get your MIQ spot and then leave and then have to get another one. Like it didn't make sense. So they're a little bit of a sturdier defense because you'll have Bunge in there with more like two actual specialist centre backs. Midfield will be basically the same as it was last time, so no dramas there. It's probably the strength of the team in the two squads that we've seen since the Olympics under Jitka Klimkova. And same theme is that there are different players in the attacking realms. A few of the college players dropped out, a couple hanging in there though. But still, like the striking options are clearly the weakness in the squad. A lot of inexperience there. Like your most experienced player in that area is probably, I haven't got the team sheet in front of me, the squad list, but I'd assume probably Katie Rood with about 15 caps or something along those lines. It's still not full strength or anything like that, but it's not that far off. And there's better depth now than there has been in the past, certainly. And there's definitely a bit of an aim, I think, from Klimkova in these first couple of squads to just have a look at some of that depth. Like, I don't think she's worried whatsoever that there are a few players who are unavailable right at the end of their seasons or whatever, or for various reasons. Like, I don't think she's too worried about that. I think that's just a nice opportunity for her to, okay, well, I know what I can expect from Abby Erceg, so let's have a look at some of these other younger defenders and see what's up, see what they can offer. And, a couple players who haven't been picked for a little while, let's bring them back in and see what's up and how they may have improved. And it helps that Klimkova as well has had, in the past, she did coach the under-17s for a World Cup cycle and was assistant with the under-20s, so has worked with quite a few players in that sort of age range where they're 25 to 30 age now, where you're coming into the peak of your career. So that there's I don't want to call it experimental, because I think the starting 11 is still going to be pretty close to what you'd normally see. But there is a little bit of a thought to that, of just having a look at the depth. This is the time, start of the cycle. This is the opportunity you have to do that. And obviously then the other thing to say is that there were massive improvements between the first game against Canada and the second game against Canada. So that's probably the biggest difference in terms of what we'll actually see on the field, is how much can they grow from that second game and what they were able to do really well there. how well can that be effective against Korea, and can they maintain that, and can they create a few more chances within that, and that sort of stuff. So it's a pretty interesting tour for a couple reasons there.
And again, we're keen culture observers. We're keen team building observers, as you might have picked up in this podcast maybe earlier. Keynote there, you said about the football Ferns building their squad at the start of a cycle.
Yes.
White Ferns are doing a similar thing at the end of the cycle. That's the issue here. And it's a thing about timing and planning. You got to, well, it's a basic, I think this isn't too dissimilar to why I am a bit like ho-hum about the All Blacks, because it's a very clear cycle and pattern with the All Blacks. At the start or like couple years out, like it's only when you get to 1 year out, 2 years out, that you're fine tuning your squad for the World Cup. Prior to that, you're competing as hard as you can, but you're providing opportunities for players. You're developing a squad, you're developing a group so that any one of those players can contribute to the World Cup, depending on injuries and stuff like that. The White Ferns are not doing that. They're doing let's try and integrate players at the last moment of a World Cup cycle. And it sounds like the football Ferns, they've got a new coach. They're starting their cycle. So understandably, with the new head honcho, they're taking a wider look at the players available. Let's stick to what's most pertinent. Let's because we've got to roll through a few things just to finish the podcast. So I want to go most pertinent thing that you're thinking about for the Wellington Phoenix coming into their game against Central Coast Mariners. I believe the Mariners had a win last week. Most pertinent Wellington Phoenix thing for yourself.
The most pertinent thing is the result. I think it's getting a win. It's getting a win on the board nice and early on. They had a game they could have won first up. They drew it. Like a bad spell of about half an hour early second half, but they finished the game stronger after that. Like they once they conceded, they didn't crumble. You know, they found a way to get back into the mix, and there had been this is after they'd had to sub off Piscopo and Hooper, their two best attacking players, arguably, give or take some David Ball. So like at that point, you assume that guys like that are building up their fitness. Hopefully Piscopo's ankles all right. Maybe they can just be a bit more clinical in the first half and whatever, score a couple more goals. I don't know, but however they do it, I think it's very important for the team, because the ramifications of another slow start to the season are going to be pretty crippling, because they have been the last 3 years as well. They've had to continually overcome slow starts and just taking too long to get 1-2 wins on the board. So getting a W nice and early on, I think would be absolutely massive for the team, even if it's a scrappy, like a scrappy lucky performance. I don't know, a dodgy penalty in the 90th minutes to win 1-0 or something. Who cares? Like, just get 3 points on the board. Get the confidence off the back of that, and this team can get rolling, because we know they're a team that gets on a roll. They've been like that. They've been like that for each of those three. They've been like that under Talai, and they were like that the year that Rudin was there as well. And in fact, to be honest, they were like that a lot of the time under Ernie Merrick too back in the day. Like a team that might go 6 games without a win, but then also might like win 4 in a row after that and have an 8-game unbeaten streak or something. They're actually on like a 12-game unbeaten streak right now, because of how they finished last season, which ultimately left them 1 point shy of making the final series. So like the reason they were so shy is a lot of little moments you can, like, there's a De Vere penalty that was missed late in one of those games, which they drew. Would have won that game if he'd scored it, would have made the finals if he'd scored it. Easy to look at a moment like that. Really, the problem was that they left themselves needing that penalty to go in, because they dropped so many points at the start of the season. So a quick start to this season, 3 points on the board, doesn't matter how they do it. I think that would be a massive boost for that team. From a cultural perspective, is to keep that theme going as well. It's easy to underestimate just how much just a happy locker room affects performance and giving players the confidence to do what they do well. So points on the board early on is just a major factor for the Wellington Phoenix, I reckon.
So that sets up the viewing experience as like, this is a game we just got to win. We're not looking for anything pretty. We're preparing to get in the fucking trenches and just get it done. That's what we're here for with the Wellington Phoenix on Saturday evening. You've got Chris Wood behind you. Flying Kiwis are busy. Away. We've got domestic football. What is most pertinent to you in the overseas and domestic footballing exploits? Maybe like, put them against each other. Like, is there something in domestic football that is more pertinent to you than the Flying Kiwis, and vice versa?
Well, I think how would that work? 1, 2, 3 is with like I'm just thinking about how the women's domestic league goes, because they're into the flip side of the fixtures now. So they've played, like 4 teams play each other twice, so 6 games. They've just played the first 3. So there'll be 2 to go. So I don't think Southern would clinch it this week if they were to beat Capital again and make it 4 wins out of 4. However, they would be a point away from doing so with a game against Central, who haven't won a game yet, haven't got a point yet, coming up. Like, there's no final in the women's competition, so it's just like straight round robin. It's basically a Champions League group stage, 4 teams, 6 games. I don't think anyone would have, I wouldn't. I would have had Southern as the third choice there. I liked the fact that they had a consistent team, like a lot of players returning who were very good for them last year. I thought maybe the loss of Macy Fraser would be a bit of a blow they would struggle to overcome. But then every team's lost players from last season. So they've been really good playing Southern United style football as well. Like, really sturdy at the back, just not giving an inch, cover a lot of ground in the midfield. Big, strong centre forward who can lay the ball off and bring others into the game, as well as putting away a few goals. And they've brought in a little bit more of a pressing style as well to really catch out other teams trying to play, if teams play a little bit too slow in the build-up against them. And they've won 3 straight and have it all within their control to potentially win the South Central series. So I think that's a massive game. There's Southern against Central. It's in Dunedin as well. So that's huge. That's the biggest domestic football game coming up, especially considering that the men's stuff, there's only 2 rounds left in the men's because there is a grand final in that last week. But because there's a grand final, the top 2 teams go through. So there's a little bit of leeway. You can drop a game and then sneak into second and then back yourself in the grand final way. Suspect at this rate it will be Miramar and Wellington Olympic who make the final. And no one's going to complain about that after they drew 4-4 in an absolute classic on the weekend. So that'll be good too. As for Flying Kiwi stuff, well, the women are on an international break, so nothing going on there. That's pure football Ferns areas. But yeah, I think Chris Wood is the dude who certainly was the big headliner in Flying Kiwis this week. Just scored his 50th Premier League goal, which is crazy just to think like that he's done that. And I was looking at, I wrote it down somewhere too, but I can't remember where, so I don't have it on me. But I was looking at, how he scored like 10 plus goals in the last 4 seasons combined. Well, I looked at the other players who have done that. This goal on the weekend was his 3rd of the season. He's a little bit slow to start, but, his 3 goals, probably about a third of the way through the season now. He's still on track to get that 10 mark, especially because it's Chris Wood. Like, he'll bang a double one week. He'll get on a roll, score like 4 goals in 5 games or something like that. This is the kind of stuff that he does. So he's still on course to get that 10 plus and 5 straight. And I was looking at the other players who have scored 10 plus in the last 4 rounds. Well, Mo Salah's already done it. He's got 11 goals. Mo Salah has been playing at a level like he might even be better than he was a couple of years ago when Liverpool won the title. Like, he's unreal at the moment. He's already got 11 goals this season, so he's already got there. He's the last 5 seasons 10 plus. He's done it. Couple others who are sort of pushing close. Also a couple others who are below what Chris Wood has got so far. I think Raheem Sterling's only got 1. Harry Kane's only got 1 or 2 goals this season. So he's got more than Harry Kane today. There's Yeah, well, I'll try to find where I put those numbers later on and maybe tweet it out. But that's something that an undercurrent from within the Flying Kiwis thing that I'm definitely keeping a close eye on. And then the other thing is Joe Bell's got, I think, two games left in his season, 2 or 3, I can't remember. But very close to the end there, and they're probably, because they only drew on the weekend, probably now 5 points behind Mulder. Probably not going to get second place. But they're 5 points because they may have dropped points with a draw, but the 3 teams directly below them all lost. So, including, I think, Rosenborg lost to Mulder. So, they're 5 points clear of 4th as well. So, sitting in 3rd place, that would be the equal best finish they've had since, I think, 1991 or something. Like, I think it's like 30 years back when Viking last won the Norwegian title was about 30 years ago. Since then, they haven't finished higher than 3rd. So, to match that, get into Europe for next season. Don't think Joe Bell will be there next season for that, but that's still that would cap off a big season, and probably, potential of end of season awards coming his way too, because he's been fantastic all season.
We might keep this, we'll drip feed this over the coming weeks, because I think it is something to keep checking in on. And we'll make this a breakers free space. This is just where I'm curious to check in with a Kiwi in the Australian NBL that has caught your attention, or is top of mind for you following the NBL and tracking the NBL. We're still in preseason at the moment. So is there someone coming into the season, a Kiwi Australian NBL player with an Australian club, who is top of your charts, and someone you're just most interested in without playing too much of a game? Or maybe it's based on the preseason and just stuff you've seen from the preseason, someone who's impressed you, someone to keep an eye on heading into the season. Again, breakers free space here. We're just thinking Kiwi lad from New Zealand who you're interested in with the Australian NBL.
Yeah, I've only really watched Breakers games in the NBL Blitz. NBL Blitz is now a Breakers free zone as well because of the 4 COVID cases, which was actually weirdly reported, because the way I read the press release was someone from within the wider touring squad was the first person to test positive. They didn't specify if it was a player or not, but the way it was reported by the news is secondary on top of that was talking about it like it was a player. But maybe it was, and they know more than was released in the Breakers thing. I don't know. I just thought that was strange, but you can't do anything about that. COVID's sneaking out everywhere if you get some within the camp. All you can do is just, bide your time out and get back to it when that comes around. So looking at the wider NBL scene, not having watched a lot of stuff in the Blitz on other players, I'm finding it hard to go beyond Izayah Mauriohooho-Leafa there for Southeast Melbourne Phoenix, who are the most fun non-breakers Kiwi team for sure. Maybe just the most fun Kiwi team full stop. Probably not, though. Probably not when you got Finn Delaney and the Breakers. Finn Delaney's box office. But the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix have Ruben Tarangi, they have Mauriohooho-Leafa, and they used to have Yanni Wetzel, no longer have Yanni Wetzel, but they did pick up Tohi Smith-Milner. So still keeping that sort of 3 Kiwi range. I think they had Mike Cadena there last year as well as an injury replacement. Is
Vickerman dude still the coach as well?
Dean Vickerman is coach of Melbourne United.
Right. So there's no Kiwi coach.
Who have Shea Illy and just signed Dion Brewster. So nicely done. The Southeast Melbourne coaching connection you're thinking of is Judd Flavel as an assistant there. Right. So heaps of Kiwi, work with Breakers, Tall Blacks, all the NBL stuff. And clearly has been an influential factor in getting some of these New Zealand lads over there. So, Izayah Mauriohooho-Leafa last year comes in on a DP contract, plays fantastic on this DP contract. So, probably shouldn't have been a DP to start with, but if you can get a rotation-worthy guy on a DP, you do it because it's good for salary stuff. It's basically an extra player. So he comes in, does fantastic. They upgrade him. I think it's 1 year contract with an option a player option by the looks of it for next season. So surely he's taken that player option. Effectively, that's a 2-year contract. On the back of his season as a DP, I want to see what he does second year on top of that, with hopefully he got a lot of minutes when there was, one of their imports got injured last year. So he got boosted up into a bit more of a spotlight than he might have otherwise had in an alternate universe. But the fact he did so well in that suggests that he should be getting more opportunities like that this season. And I'm pretty keen to see what he does, because he's a very fun player to watch. Just like really quick, athletic, very good defender as well. All those things you kind of want from a Kiwi basketball guard.
What's he shooting from beyond the arc?
Fluctuates a little bit. I think he's more of the get to the rim and lay it in type, but certainly he can hit his 3-pointers. I'm not sure what his stats are. I'll check.
So if he's going to the NBA, he's got to get that 3-point shot up, like Steven Adams.
Yeah, well, Steven Adams' 3-point attempts this season still at 0, I believe. For all the work he put in the off season, that was before he got traded to Memphis, where once he got to Memphis, he had a nice clear role, which I think we're seeing in the last couple of weeks. Doesn't necessarily mean 30 plus minutes every game. Sometimes the matchups aren't great. A lot of teams don't play traditional big men, so that means Steven Adams doesn't get to do a lot in those games. Sometimes that's the case. But there was a good interview with him on the Memphis channel, working with their Grind City media folks. Good interview with him where they sort of asked him about his role fitting into the team, and he's like, that might not have even been it. It might have been asking about just his growth as a basketball player, and he was talking about that was it. It was, the question was, when did you first think you were a good basketball player? And he's like, I've never thought I'm a good basketball player. I didn't think I stood out when I was a kid. I was just tall. I got to the NBA. I didn't necessarily feel like I belonged or anything. I just was like he said, basically, I just like to work. He just likes to get in that grind. Coaches ask him to do something and he'll do it to the best of his abilities. That's what he said. So I don't think he cares if he only plays like 15 minutes some nights or whatever. He's just like,
he's a Kiwi.
as long as I can give you the best 15 minutes that I'm capable of, then sweet as. And often the reason he'll only play 15 minutes is because that best wasn't good enough. And other teams are chucking quick guards running past him, or just like centers who can shoot and stretching him out and then targeting them down low with the rebounds, taking him away from that kind of area, things like that. Just your typical center matchups. That's how the NBA goes these days. But Steve, like as I'm saying, I don't think Steven Adams is too bothered by that. As long as he's got clear instructions and knows what his job is, as long as he feels like he did as well as he could have, if that means he gets finishes a game with 2 points and 2 rebounds in 12 minutes, I think as long as he feels like that was him playing as well as he could, he's going to be sweet with that.
I don't imagine you managed to find Mauriohooho-Leafa's 3-point stats while you're dropping.
Oh, not while I was talking, but give me half a second.
Because while you're looking for that, I am interested in any stylistic notes, because we like the 3-point thing. Like obviously that's a massive NBA stuff. How the game has changed a lot. Do we have to view the NBL the same way? Or can I just enjoy Mauriohooho-Leafa getting to the rim, making his free throws, getting some assists in, and this style of play in the NBL isn't necessarily as 3-point centric as that type of play that we're seeing?
I think it's a little bit more than it has been. I can't remember, someone tweeted something out about this, like just the trends of the NBL moving towards more of that, which wasn't so much moving towards more 3-pointers at the expense of layups or anything. Like the layups were still, if anything, layups were going up as well. It was just the mid-range shots are shrinking. And so those are getting distributed on both sides, from, shooting from further out or shooting from closer in. And it does make sense. Like if you're going to shoot a 2-pointer from a meter inside the perimeter, you might as well just take one step back, and the shot's not going to be much harder, and you're probably going to have practiced that shot a lot more. Actually, it might even be a little bit slightly easier. One step back, Hop a 3-pointer, bigger reward, right? 50% more points on offer. He shot 45% from where are we? 45% from the field overall last season. And 35%, 37 out of 105 from 3-point range, which is fairly consistent to what he's also did in the NBL showdown in New Zealand. So he shot 36% that season. So not a
attempts per game.
That would be. I'm only looking at the totals here, but 105 from 32, so about 3.5. So not a high volume, not a high percentage, but within that average range to where it's worthy of open shot. You're always going to take it. That kind of caliber of player. It's not the strength of his game as well. He is an extremely good on-ball defender and athletic guard. So those are perfectly good complementary 3-point stat. If you're if the 3-point shot is your meat and potatoes, that's not so great. If you're also bringing a whole bunch of other things to the table and that's just your side dish, that is decent.
Yeah, it's a good basketball package when you got a bit of everything. And he's a chunky dude. He's not a little guard. You don't push him around. Yeah, obviously it's easy to compare it. It's not a rugby player, but wouldn't look out of place. The go-to is Steven Adams. He'd be a great rugby player.
They ask him that all the time in America. Yeah. He's always being told, "Did you play rugby as a kid?" And he's like, "Yeah, and I got smashed. I was too tall. It's big fellas just flying at your legs and take you out. It's no good."
Yeah, Mauriohooho-Leafa actually looks like he could be like a number 12 or something like that. He's not too big. Well, halfback's a bit too small. I'm trying to give him some, props here. He's not.
Well, that's the thing is he's one of those guys who looks a bit small compared to if you're running around screens against 6'10" centers. But I can actually tell you how tall he is. He's 6'2", 188 centimeters.
He's not fucking a halfback.
That's not small. Midfield. Yeah,
he's running holes. He's fucking getting around. Rightio, let's finish up the niche cast there. We'll be back early next week with another episode of the Variety Show, and we'll be back with another Patreon podcast. We'll be recapping the Wellington Phoenix. I'm sure that podcast comes after the Blackcaps test, so it'll be a pretty damn fun Patreon podcast on Tuesday as well. So stay tuned for that. Stay tuned for the Variety Show. Always read about Kiwi sports at theniche-case.com. Stay beautiful. Kia kaha. Church it.